Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. General Hospital, GH, spoilers for Thursday, February 26 state that Willow Kane, Caitlin McMullen, will be backed into a corner while Laura Collins, Jeannie Francis, prepares for a press conference. Jason Morgan, Steve Burton, will make a commitment to Sonny Corinthos, Maurice Benard, as they prepare for a catastrophic conclusion. Diane Miller, Carolyn Hennessy, will persuade Alexis Davis, Nancy Lee Grahn, to inform Sonny of something. However, Alexis may become distracted as Laura prepares to hold a news conference. Ezra Boyle, Daniel Cosgrove, pays Laura a visit and gives some new orders from Jen Sidwell, Carlo Rota, which she will not appreciate. Ezra will suggest that they are in the same boat and advise Laura to simply do what Sidwell says or they will both be in trouble. Laura will most likely be directed to promote Willow as Drew Kane's, Cameron Matheson, Congress seat successor rather than Alexis. Laura may be forced to provide Willow's name to the governor and even hold a large press conference to support Drew's wife. Alexis may be caught off guard when Laura switches things up, and she may have questions for her shortly. Willow may have additional doubts about her ability to handle this issue. There's also the issue of Drew's care, as Willow needs to be present to give him his medication doses and can't put him in a long-term care facility. Willow may try to tell Sidwell she isn't sure about this, but he will urge they both understand that refusal is not an option. Willow may get alarmed at the end of this conversation, realizing that Sidwell would retaliate if she rejected his Congresswoman Kane pitch. Over with Jason, he will update Sonny on his latest conversation with Ross Cullum, Andrew Hawk. Jason will emphasize that, the sooner this guy is dead, the better, and will once again promise Sonny that they will remove Cullum from the map as soon as possible. The same applies for Sidwell, but Sonny and Jason must exercise caution because Sidwell has blackmail information to use against Laura. At General Hospital, Isaiah Gannon, Sarandi Wilson, will adore Portia Robinson, Brooke Kerr, and claim that her every request is his command. Portia may hope Trina Robinson, Tabiana Ali, would give Isaiah a chance, and Isaiah may resolve to win her over. Isaiah will seek Trina out on Thursday's show, and she will understand he is asking for her permission to be with Portia. Even if Trina isn't ready to give it yet, Isaiah may make some progress with her. General Hospital spoilers predict Portia and Isaiah's romance will continue anyway, so stay tuned. The late afternoon sun poured through the towering windows of General Hospital, leaving broad golden streaks on the polished floors. The day had been fraught with stress, and even the constant cadence of monitors and hushed footsteps in the corridors couldn't drown out the undercurrent of emotion growing beneath the surface. Lulu sat alone in a quiet spot near the nurses' station, her mind running faster than she could control it. Many aspects of her life had recently felt unpredictable, with relationships moving, alliances shifting, and danger lurking where she least expected it. She wrapped her arms around herself, attempting to regain strength before confronting what she knew was coming. She did not have to wait long. Nathan's steps were deliberate as he approached. He was not smiling. There was no taunting spark in his eyes, and no funny joke to relieve the tension. Instead, there was resolve. "Lulu," he murmured quietly but with clear confidence. She looked up and searched his face. "You look serious." "I am." He spoke without hesitation. He did not waver. "We've been dancing around this issue for too long. I'm done pretending that how I feel doesn't matter." Her heart thumped in her chest. "Nathan," she began, wondering whether to brace herself or allow herself hope. "I want you," he stated frankly. "Not as a maybe. Not as a backup plan. Not someday. Now." The words hung between them, weighty and electrifying. "You deserve someone who's all in," he said, stepping closer. "And I am. Regardless of the challenges and baggage, I am committed to this." From you. Surprise, vulnerability, and terror all flickered over her face. "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple," he conceded. "But it is real. And I'm not going to continue pretending I don't care just because it's complicated." She searched his eyes for uncertainty and hesitancy. There was none. "Are you sure?" she whispered. I've never been more sure. For a little moment, the hospital noise subsided. It was only the two of them, and the weight of a decision neither could reverse. She slowly stretched for his hand, as if to see if he was really present. I don't want to get hurt again, she admitted. Then let me prove you won't, Nathan said. Let me show you I mean it. Across town, in a luxurious apartment overlooking the waterfront, the mood was everything from tender. Jen Sidwell stood holding a tumbler of bourbon, gazing out at the metropolitan skyline as if he owned every inch of it. Willow shifted anxiously behind him, tightening her fingers together to try to keep her breathing regular. Do you think I don't know what you've been doing? Sidwell asked without turning around. I haven't done anything wrong, Willow maintained, her voice shaking despite her efforts to sound confident. He laughed softly, without humor. Wrong is subjective. He turned and fixed her with a hard, calculating glare. You have been talking, asking inappropriate questions, getting close to people who are highly inconvenient for me. Her pulse quickened. I'm not part of whatever you're involved in. You are now, he replied evenly. He stepped closer to her, reducing the gap between them until she felt trapped by his presence alone. Let me be very clear, Sidwell added. If you interfere with my plans again, if you align yourself against me, there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? She demanded, lifting her chin despite the horror that gripped her throat. I'm educating you, he explained calmly. There's a difference. Silence spread between them. You have a family, he said, his voice becoming deeper. People you care about. It'd be a shame if your curiosity put them in danger. The meaning was clear. Willow gulped hard. She refused to cry, refused to offer him satisfaction. You don't scare me, she said, but her trembling palms belied her words. I don't need to, Sidwell said. I just need you to understand. He walked back, recovering his personal space as if nothing had happened. You're smarter than this, he added casually. Make the right choice. Meanwhile, at a poorly lit office on the outskirts of town, Sonny leaned heavily on his desk with a grim frown. The weight of leadership had never disturbed him. However, this situation, Cullum's rising hostility, the threats getting closer to home, felt different. Jason stood opposite him, arms folded and jaw set. Cullum crossed the line, Sonny stated quietly. Coming after family was a mistake. Jason did not argue. He did not need to. I should have handled him weeks ago, Sonny said, his voice full of rage. I gave him a chance to back off. And he didn't, Jason answered. No. The one word conveyed finality. Sonny looked up to his most trustworthy ally. I don't want collateral damage. There won't be, Jason stated confidently. Sonny observed him for a long time. They had been through wars together, both actual and figurative. There was an implicit agreement between them. Loyalty is forged over years of blood and fire. I need this handled, Sonny stated. You're asking me to take him out, Jason said without hesitation. I'm telling you it's time, Sonny responded. Jason's gaze tightened. I'll take care of Cullum, he assured. The choice landed like a stone in the room. Are you sure? Sonny pressed only once. Jason nodded. He is a menace. And threats are eliminated. Later that evening, Lulu stood on her apartment balcony, reliving Nathan's comments in her thoughts. The city lights shimmered below, each one a reminder that life goes on, no matter how knotted it becomes. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Nathan. You left without answering me, he replied kindly. I needed to think. And she took a deep breath. I do not want halfway. If we do this, it will be all in. There are no secrets. No running when things get tough. He walked inside and closed the door behind him. All in, he reiterated. That's exactly what I'm offering. She examined him again, looking for flaws in his assurance. She found none. She slowly grinned. Okay. Relief surged over him. "Okay," he echoed. "Okay," she replied. He drew her into his arms, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in something real. Willow sat in her car, tears streaming down her cheeks after she was safely away from Sidwell's suite. She clutched the steering wheel, rage simmering beneath her terror. How dare he? He believed he could terrify her into silence. Perhaps he didn't know her as well as he assumed. She cleaned her face before reaching for her phone. If Sidwell thought threats would get her to back down, he was mistaken. And Jason studied the scene from a shadowy warehouse near the docks, gathering intelligence. Cullum's men were careless, too confident and noisy. They weren't aware they were being watched. Jason crept back into the night, his thoughts already planning the next moves. This wasn't vengeance. It was a strategy. Cullum had decided to escalate. Now he would have to cope with the repercussions. Back in Sonny's office, the criminal boss glanced at an old family portrait. The lines on his face were deeper tonight. "Stay safe," he mumbled under his breath, not sure if it was to Jason, his children, or himself. Nathan and Lulu's laughter resonated softly from her apartment balcony, transforming their earlier tension into something cheerful. Willow, on the other hand, solidified her determination. Sidwell's admonition echoed in her ears, but rather than silence her, it drove her. And Jason, meticulous and unrelenting, was ready to move. 3 different conflicts were forming, one for love, one for courage, and one for survival. Each decision would have an impact on Port Charles, altering the environment in ways they couldn't predict. Nathan had declared his heart without hesitation. Sidwell had drawn a line in the sand. Jason had made a commitment to Sonny, which he intended to uphold at whatever cost. The tension in Port Charles had reached a boiling point, the type that simmered under every polite conversation and lingered in the shadows of familiar places such as hospital halls, docks, and quiet nooks of homes where secrets festered. Jen Sidwell, the man whose name now held the weight of implicit threats and deliberate movements, had expanded his reach beyond anyone's expectation. His collaboration with Ross Cullum, the WSB director whose ambition concealed a cruel side, had spun a web that entwined far too many people, from Britt Westbourne's dangerous predicament to the lingering risks around Sonny Corinthos and those close to him. Willow Tate Kane went about her day with the studied grace of someone who had learned to separate grief from purpose. She had come a long way from the insecure young lady she once was, rebuilding her life after losses that still pained in quiet moments. Her marriage to Drew, which had once been a source of stability, had morphed into something darker during the political machinations that followed his demise. Sidwell recognized potential in her vulnerability, in how she balanced parenthood, her nursing career, and an unanticipated desire for power. He had previously approached her with suggestions that seemed like velvet gloves over iron fists: take Drew's congressional seat, step into the role that fate had left vacant, and gain influence that might either protect or ruin her family depending on how she played the game. But Willow had resisted, holding to the life she knew, one in which her children came first, and her heart hadn't yet been hardened by the games of men like Sidwell. That resistance came to an end on this day, when Sidwell concluded that subtlety was no longer useful to him. He cornered her at a place that should have felt safe, possibly the hospital grounds or a quiet meeting set up under the premise of concern about Drew's legacy. His voice was low and measured, with an accent that made each word sound like a foreign blade. He discussed the ramifications and how refusal was no longer an option. Willow's eyes widened as he revealed the truth: her children, Wiley and Amelia, the innocents who had already been through too much turmoil. Sidwell didn't need to raise his voice. The menace hung in the air like smoke, suffocating any protest she may have made. He reminded her of the connections he had, connections that may jeopardize her custody arrangements, reveal old secrets from her past, or worse, put her family in the crosshairs of the perils that surround Port Charles. Willow felt a cold grip of terror settle in her chest, the same anxiety that had previously led her to make desperate decisions. She remembered Michael, the custody fights that had left them all scarred, and how Sidwell could open those scars anew. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the edge of whatever surface was closest, bracing herself against the nausea that accompanied his words. Sidwell regarded her reaction with the detached curiosity of a man who has shattered stronger wills. He gave her no space for negotiation, only a deadline and the threat that non-compliance would lose her all she valued. Jason Morgan stood opposite his longest buddy across town, in the dark light of sunny Corintho's office, or possibly a discreet place at the Metro Court where business was conducted away from prying eyes. Sonny's face had the lines of a man who had seen too many conflicts, his dark eyes bright despite the exhaustion that came from continual alertness. The air between them was thick with unsaid history, years of loyalty, Jason pulling Sonny back from the brink, Sonny doing the same for him. Cullum's name had become poison in their conversations, representing federal overreach and personal vendettas that threatened to demolish what Sonny had accomplished. Jason had always been the enforcer, doing the nasty work so Sonny could keep the appearance of respectability. But this time seemed different. Cullum was more than just another competitor. He was a guy with resources, badges, and a resentment that dated back through layers of WSB operations and betrayals. Jason had already clashed with him indirectly, through interrogations, veiled warnings, Cullum's investigation into Britt's past, and the Five Poppies Resort, where secrets had almost buried them all. Jason was fully aware of Cullum's close relationship with Sidwell, and how the director's desire for power complemented Sidwell's plans in Port Charles. Sonny paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, the pattern of his steps serving as a metronome for the growing wrath within him. He discussed the attempts on his life, the close calls that left visible and secret wounds. Sonny felt Cullum's fingerprints were on those, despite the lack of proof. Jason listened attentively, his blue eyes fixed on every word. When Sonny eventually came to a halt and turned to face him, there was no need to ask the question openly. It existed in the silence between them, in the way Sonny's jaw tensed. Jason breathed softly, the decision solidifying in his thoughts like ice on water. He had promised protection before, to Carly, Michael, and the frail family they had all built over decades. Now, that pledge included putting an end to the threat at its source. "The sooner this guy is dead, the better," Jason replied, his voice bland and lacking of swagger, yet heavy with confidence. Sonny matched his eyes, looking for any uncertainty or crack in Jason's unwavering determination. There was none. Jason went on to explain what he knew, including Cullum's meetings with Sidwell, the pressure on Britt to supply risky technology, and how the WSB director used his position to protect his personal agenda. Taking Cullum out would be difficult. Federal protection, surveillance, and the potential of putting even more pressure on Sonny's organization. But Jason had faced unfathomable odds before. He talked about contingencies, timing, making it appear like an accident, or blaming it on another opponent. Sonny nodded once, the gesture tiny but full of trust. The pledge hung between them, not a casual vow, but a blood oath reiterated in the stillness of the chamber. Jason would handle it. He always has. Sonny placed a hand on Jason's shoulder, a brief but profound gesture that acknowledged the link that had endured incarceration, amnesia, betrayals, and near-death experiences. They didn't require flowery language. Their history spoke for itself. Jason turned to go, already planning his steps in his head. The monitoring he would require, the allies he could call on without alerting the wrong people, the window of opportunity that might only exist once. Meanwhile, Willow arrived home, still suffering from Sidwell's ultimatum. The house felt too calm, with the children's giggling in another room providing a strong contrast to the storm inside her. She collapsed onto the couch, staring at nothing and repeating what Sidwell had spoken. Threatening her children went beyond what she expected, even from him. Willow had always attempted to soar above the tumult of Port Charles, to be the steadfast one, the healer. However, survival sometimes required different choices. She remembered Drew, who had been imprisoned up or weakened by whatever machinations had taken him out of the scene, and how Sidwell dangled the congressional seat like a poisoned chalice. Accepting it may provide her with the necessary leverage to safeguard her family. Refusing meant jeopardizing everything. Tears pinched her eyes, but she blinked them away. Weakness was not an option now. She'd have to play the game for a while to figure out how to get out. Jason drove through the familiar streets, feeling the weight of his commitment settle like a second skin. He had previously taken lives, but only for the purpose of protection, never for sport. Cullum represented a different type of threat, one who wore authority as armor. Jason was aware of the dangers, exposure, reprisal, and the likelihood that assassinating a WSB director would result in federal vengeance against everyone he cared about. Nonetheless, he lacked hesitancy. Sonny's trust, Carly's safety, and Britt's precarious independence depended on removing the threat. As night settled on Port Charles, city lights bounced off the sea like scattered diamonds, concealing the darkness beneath. Sidwell retreated to Windermere or whichever stronghold he preferred, confident that Willow would bend. She would give in. They always do when family is the leverage. He poured himself a drink, enjoying the feeling of control. Willow sat with her children and read them a story, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. She kissed their foreheads, silently pledging that she would protect them at all costs. Sidwell's threat resonated in her mind, as did her own resolve. She wasn't the same woman who had previously fled her background. She'd learned to fight. Jason met with a person in the shadows and exchanged information that would allow him to track Cullum's travels. Every detail mattered, the man's routines, his security detail, and the times when he was most susceptible. Jason's thinking worked methodically, removing variables and preparing for contingencies. He recalled Sonny's face, the silent desperation beneath the swagger, and reinforced his dedication. The threads of these lives become further entwined with each passing hour. Willow's dilemma loomed, Sidwell's attitude rose, and Jason's promise came closer to reality. Port Charles had seen its share of violence, betrayal, and redemption, but this convergence felt like the beginning of something permanent. Cullum's days were numbered, Willow's path was tainted by coercion, and at the core of it all, devotion and love motivated individuals like Jason to accomplish what others could not. The city slept restlessly, unknowing that the balance of power had altered in secret chats and unsaid threats. Tomorrow would bring conflicts, perhaps violence, and possibly uneasy truces. But tonight, the promise lingered. Jason would eliminate Cullum, Willow would confront Sidwell's anger, and the consequences would transform everything.